Building a worm bin is a great way to recycle kitchen scraps and create nutrient-rich worm castings for your garden. Here's part 2 of a simple guide on how to build one. Follow along and you will be creating worm castings in no time. In part 1 of this guide, we went over the following: the bin selection, drilling holes for airflow, and preparing the bedding. Now let's continue your journey. Adding the worms. Red wiggler worms are commonly used for worm bins. You can source these worms online or from a local supplier. The worms I'll be adding will come from an existing worm bin, as the population in it will have grown enough that it needs to be reduced. After you place your worms on top of the bedding, do not bury them. Let them dive down into the bedding on their own. If need be, you can use a light source to quicken their escape downward. You can actually see the worms burying themselves. This should take no more than 10 minutes or so. Watching them seems a bit therapeutic to me, and I usually watch them until they are totally hidden away in the bedding. Adding food. Since this bedding is half composted food waste, I don't need to add any food for the worms at this time. I do have to add a grit though. I like to use pulverized eggshells. Add kitchen scraps to the worm bin after 24 hours. Worms eat almost anything, however, avoid citrus and meat. I feed the worms mostly fruits, vegetables, and coffee grounds. Take care not to overfeed them, as the bedding is also a food source. Once you sprinkle on the eggshells, mix it into the bedding. The worms will eat it and use it to grind their food in their gizzards. Maintain the bin. Keep the bin in a cool place, ideally between 50 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Regularly check the moisture levels to ensure it isn't too dry or too wet. The bins are kept in a spare room in my home, because it is wintertime, and they must be kept from freezing. Every few days I check the bin to check on the moisture levels, worm populations, and food levels. Covering a worm bin has several benefits. Moisture retention. The cover helps maintain the perfect moisture balance within your compost bin. If your bin is drying out too quickly, a worm blanket can act as a moisture-retaining layer. Temperature control. A cover keeps the temperature steady within the bin. This creates a dark and cozy environment that worms love. Odor control. The best lids for a worm bin lock away any unwanted odors. Pest control. The lid acts as a shield against pests like fruit flies. A good layer of cardboard on top also helps against insects such as fruit flies and mosquitoes. Protection. The cover acts as a protective shield, offering a controlled environment for your composting worms. Remember, the goal is to create a comfortable living environment for the worms, which in turn helps optimize your vermicomposting system. Congratulations, you just built your own worm bin.